In every crafter's journey, there comes a time where we decide we're going to do a temperature project. This could be a cross stitch, crochet. I've seen people doing dolls as well as different articles of clothing. But essentially, trying to find the first creator of this trend is nearly impossible. It's like trying to find a needle in a haystack. And many have definitely tried this trend, many have failed, and fewer have succeeded. In the past, I gave a valiant effort, as you can see here, where I may not have made it to finish this rice stitch temperature blanket. I did learn quite a bit when I went through this challenge. Consider this video to be a guide of how I will complete the temperature blanket and explore some of the rabbit holes to avoid. Let's start off with the first issue that I came across when I've tried to do this the first year as well as this year. What pattern exactly should I go ahead and use? Like many other crafters with this project, something that could easily get away from you is the scope. You'll start out thinking, okay, I have one row and I'm doing one row at a time. And then it keeps growing and growing and growing. All of a sudden, you've gone from having a standard row to a scarf to a lapgan to an afghan to a holy crap, this is a big blanket. Likewise, with any of the other versions of the craft, if you do the beading or if you decide to do cross stitch, it can get out of hand quickly. All of a sudden, you've gone from having a standard row to a scarf to a lapgan to an afghan to a holy crap, this is a big blanket. Likewise, with any of the other versions of the craft, if you do the beading or if you decide to do cross stitch, it can get out of hand quickly. Even with my first blanket, which you can see in the prior picture, something I loved about the stitch was that it was bulky and heavy and actually felt like it was going to be warm and cozy. However, when I was actually having to put together all three of the panels, it was going to be ginormous. So that's our first issue that we have to deal with. Then we have rabbit hole number two that I fell in the first time that I attempted this project is slowing down in the creation process. Because this is a project that doesn't just start. There's no pattern. I can't just go to Etsy or to any of the other places and find a pattern that is a 2026 temperature blanket. It's something done in the moment. There's no defined end date. And typically, most crafters, whether you're someone that's like myself, who has been crocheting ever since I was around 5 years old, to someone that's a brand new beginner, or we can even say someone that's been doing this for decades. It's not something where you're accustomed to having to create the pattern as you go. It doesn't have a defined end date that can be done in a couple weeks, a couple months. It's 365 days of dedication basically to the craft and to the project. Basically, you end up with questions such as, do you want to do this as a weekly challenge to yourself? Take the temperature Sunday through Saturday, and Saturday is the day that you crochet last week's blanket or last week's row. Or if you're doing a origami style doll, the row that you're doing. This is potentially one of the most psychologically draining versions of a craft project that a crafter could do, simply because there's so many variables that are going to be out of your control. So make sure that when you do this project that you're giving yourself grace and be willing to learn, pause, take breaks when necessary. Here we go down the third rabbit hole. What type of yarn, how much yarn, and where to buy the supplies. which is the biggest development that has taken me all of last week. I'm saying that this is week 0, but week 0 really started last week before this video is being posted. So I want to say, when it comes down to this project, it can be an investment. You can probably find someone online that has a kit where they're going to sell you the yarn, give you the pattern, and everything else. To start off, I want to say I am stubborn. I did not go and try to find someone else's exact pattern to copy it their exact way because I like to be unique. I mean, I'm wearing this crocheted sweater that I also did without a pattern. I also want to make the point that these next few things I say will not apply to people where I understand you may have a allergy to certain types of yarn. I understand where I come from a privilege and that I am able to basically crochet with, knit with, weave with. I don't really knit, but I have done floral loom weaving. I can tolerate acrylic yarns. I do understand there are people out there that have to have cotton yarn or they have to have bamboo yarn. That is not for me. Also, I am not in the tax bracket to be able to afford a $30 hang of 251 yards of yarn. Me, when it came down to what type of yarn, I already knew I wasn't going to be able to go to a local yarn store. As much as I would love to support them, it's just not feasible with my first experience to be able to spend that much. By the end of the whole entire project, not including my labor, I'm just thinking of how many hanks that would take, considering I typically use skeins around 300 yards. However, I know $30 versus $5 for this project. I will end up going with that yarn. I've already actually picked out the yarn. It's Temperature Blanket Project, which was a few years ago. I did try to buy an estimate of the amount of how much yarn I would need per row. That did not work out for me. I am pretty sure I did the same number of color factors where it was 10 different temperature waves, but I ended up buying 60 skeins of yarn. Even though they were on sale through Joann's, that is still a lot of money to invest up front. So yeah, I definitely did not carry that over into this 2026 blanket. Yeah, so now that we've addressed or looked over some of the problems I had the first go around, we're going to go ahead into the weaving in the end section and start off with pattern selection. Weaving in the end. So to go back to part 1 of our rabbit hole where we have the pattern selection issue, I went ahead and I spent about an hour overall in Canva, which is all recorded, trying to plan out the pattern that I could do without having extra segments, because that is a pet peeve of mine. Something that I don't like about a lot of these patterns is you end up having to have spacers of a white or a black or a cream, where basically they're making up for the fact, for example, in February, it's only a 28-day month. So you're not going to end out with 31 rows. I'm still in between 2 patterns, potentially. There is one pattern that is a square. And basically, you're doing the basic Granny Square, similar to the one that I'm wearing right now. You start in the center and you go around, and every row is a day's average temperature. The other option that I am thinking about doing is a corner to corner blanket, which until recently, I have not ever successfully done a corner to corner blanket. The first one that I ever attempted was a ripple blanket, and it was a nightmare. So if something is too difficult, I am not scared to put it down and come back to it a couple years later. This one, the way the pattern looks, it seems like it would be interesting. It'll be a gradient going from basically the bottom right hand corner all the way to the top corner versus a granny square, you start in the center. So that's going to be the point of concentration, and then the color is going to spread out slowly but surely over time. I think both of them could look very cool. Know which one I prefer of the two. So you all will have to find out at 10 p.m. EST on January the 1st when I plan to do my first live stream. Into leaving the ends number 2, which is the project fatigue and fighting the good fight. As mentioned earlier, I plan to be hosting a live stream around 10 p.m. EST every day. That will probably start out with a quick 30-minute live streaming section. And my goal is, whether I end up doing the granny square or the corner to corner blanket, over time I'll need more time. So I may extend the live streams to being an hour each night. The second part of this end that I mentioned earlier as well that I had issue with was being able to properly track and keep myself accountable for this. So outside of doing the live streams where I plan to crochet live in front of people, I do have a Notions page, because the first time that I tried to do this, I lost the paper and I know that it got damaged. I keep this digital, and if people are interested in it, I can always link down below where I actually have the Notion page for you to be able to see my process and actually see the temperatures I have, the colors that are coordinating, as well as how I'm tracking day by day the average temperature. We have the final end here to weave in, which is the final supply selection. I'm not going to lie, a part of the reason why I decided on the yarn that I did was because in a prior project I had used part of this yarn for something else, so it meant I could save a little bit of moolah for 2026. Also, I really do like the yarn. It's very soft, cuddly, and shiny, so I'm happy to go ahead and use it again. And without further ado, for the 2026 temperature blanket, I will be using Caron Simply Soft yarn, and I am going to be doing a rainbow. So there are all the colors. There's red, orange, yellow, green. Well, it's pagoda and blue mint for the green sea colors. What were the other ones? I'm going to put a picture right here so that you can see the colors that I've chosen for this. This is just the beginning of our journey in 2026, starting with something where you'll be able to see me every day. I have more stories to go into, more content to go into about different things that might be craft, maybe crochet related in the future. I'm just happy to meet you all, and I can't wait to see you along the journey. And remember, always stay crafty.